Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Here we are back in Egypt, and we're looking now at the house of the archaeologists who are doing the work at the temple there of the only queen, whose name is
Queen Hatshepsut. No.
Well, that's close enough.
Close?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
right?
that's
Okay,
pretty good.
that's very close. But let me tell you something about where these workers lived. It looks pretty elegant, doesn't it? Nice anyway. But when that was built, Marvin, and it was excavated actually in 1898. They discovered that all the people that worked there, that lived there first, were killed. And that was 5,000 of them because they didn't want anybody to know about the work they had been doing in the excavating.
Oh, that's when they did that. But the house that we just took a look at there, these are the guys who are doing it now.
Going in now. But I thought that the workers were right around in that area.
They're in this area here where we're looking.
All right, but
and then there's another valley back up there where you can really see where they're where they
live.
yeah, where they
Let
live.
me ask you this though about what we just saw, where the architects are now living. I misunderstood that. Was that built just for them then?
I think so.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
I think
it
so.
looked very new,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was rebuilt over where the workers had been.
Well, you might be right in part of that. I don't know. I know that they did see an area there where some of the other the original workers were working, but it's hard to say because still a lot of this is still being excavated. So it's you might be right.
No, with the workers, they lived in sort of like a commune. All their needs were taken care of. They didn't have to go shopping for food. Oh, wow.
Well, you're right. They didn't have to go shopping for food, but what we just saw, of course, was the most important thing. Looking for water and having water there all the time, as in the days when these tombs were built. But the same thing goes on for today. Water is so very, very important. Without that, of course, there wouldn't be anything here at all.
That, of course, would be what would determine where they would reside in for while they were doing their work. Because, like you say, with no water, you don't survive.
No, that's true.
How far are we right now, approximately, from the Nile River?
Oh, I'd say probably maybe about a couple of miles, I believe.
of
Yeah,
miles.
it might be a little bit further than that.
I'm just curious to know whether they had any irrigation skills like they have done in the other desert regions, like we ourselves have done here in Death Valley. Do we have any knowledge or any evidence of that?
Not to my knowledge, but I'll tell you the other things though that we do see here, are still so sophisticated. If we take a look over to our right-hand side, from where we're driving right now, that's going to be the Valley of the Nobles. And of course, that's where a lot of the other folks, not the kings and the queens or the pharaohs, were buried. But that's a pretty big area.
Yeah, the thing that kind of impressed me a little bit along the way, and I don't even know that it fits in right here, but it has to do with the children's tombs that we talked about just a little bit ago. And all of the drawings on the tombs were of gods and goddesses and different things like that. And that was done to introduce the children to the gods that they were going to meet in the hereafter. Mm-hmm. And that's really kind of nice, isn't it? To think that of their belief that there was a hereafter, and that they wanted their children, like we teach our children today about God and about the hereafter, etc. And this is what they did then with their gods.
Yes, many gods, however. And if we look right now over here to our left-hand side, we're going to see this is the Ramesarium, or the mortuary temple of King Ramses II. Now, this was built between the years of 1292 BC and 1225. And in the background, Betty, we can see what is the remains there of the granaries there. So this must have been a big area too.
Well, my gosh, if they had 5,000 people in just that one area to feed, they had to have a lot of food, a lot of availability of food. I'm just amazed at that they could grow that much grain in such an arid place. I guess they waited for the overflow of the Nile, huh?
Well, it could have been, or they could have also hauled some of it down from some of the areas along the delta of the Nile. I mean, bringing it up to this particular area too. Sure. I would suspect they did that.
Put it in the camels' backs.
No, bring it. No, bring it on the barge. Cleopatra probably said, "Hey, take my barge."
Well, I know, but camels carry water in their humps.
Yeah, but that's rather difficult to get to, I think. Anyway, we should explain that this area was explored by the French, and we're going to come to the village where what did you say, Betty? There were like 5,000 workers. Yeah, but before we do that, over there on the left-hand side, you can see the temple of Ramses III. And now there's still, people that are living in this area, but we're going to come to that area where where that village was.
You can see it's in sort of, be kind of hard to live there, wouldn't you say?
I think it'd be hard to live anywhere where it gets this warm,
Yeah, but with nothing, just arid countryside.
Well, there are a lot of people who like to live in the Mojave Desert, live down in Barstow, live in those areas too.
Sure, but if you have air conditioning and you have a full water supply and you have all the comforts of home, why not? Go down and bake.
Yeah, now there's the village that you can see right off there as soon as we get part of the bus out of the way. That's the village right there, and you can just see a little bit of it. And I don't know if there we go, a little bit, zoom in on that just a little bit. Yeah.
It's a real hollow, isn't it? I wonder if that was an earthquake that did that, a fault.
I don't know. It could be. But now we have entered the Valley of the Queens, and you can see here the entrances to some of these tombs that we're looking at right here. And I must explain that this was a very warm day when we approached this, and like Betty says, it's arid, and it gets to be way up there as far as the temperature is concerned. But and there's no air conditioning there. But oh boy, thank goodness for the tour bus.
Yeah, it was very comfortable, huh? It was, and we weren't really that uncomfortable.
Oh no. It's just that when you're working around, and that's what I couldn't imagine that. I thought, no wonder they had to have slaves. Nobody else would do that kind of work.
Right. Well, I've always preferred the heat to the cold anyway, so I don't complain too much about the heat.
That was what we just looked at, was the tomb of Prince Ka-em-Wast. He was the son of Ramses III, and that was
his name. I'm sorry.
Well, we don't have time to go over that again because
okay.
Our guide's going to talk about something right here.
Valley. You saw the way the village where workers lived, which is very near, less than half a mile from this valley. A big group of workers every day in the morning had to go to the Valley of the Kings to work in the tomb of His Majesty. Another team had to come to this valley to work, and the biggest team should go to his or her mortuary temple. Of course, they kept working during their reign. But if we talk about a tomb of a queen, they had to work even if her husband died first. They did till her death. And it's the same story, 70 days after that, because of the same three things and so on. For their kids, they prepare 2-3 tombs, more or less, mostly one corridor, one storeroom, for keeping the treasures, the mortuary equipment of that one, and a burial room, and they plaster the walls, and they closed it by a wooden door, or just piece of stones, arranging them as if building a wall up to the lintel, and they had to wait for the death of a child. Why they didn't start the decoration of the tomb, which would be a tomb of one of their royal sons or daughters? The answer is very clear. They didn't know which one of them would be dead first. Maybe a boy, maybe a girl. Which one? The eldest, the youngest? They didn't know. When one died, and here they were informed, they had to prepare it during those 70 days till the time of the burial. And since, as you can see them inside, the father introducing that kid who's coming behind to several gods and goddesses in the afterlife. Don't forget to have a look at the 2 rooms in the beginning, one on either side. In them, the child already knew them, so he's offering to them and praying before them. The symbol of the royal children, you will see the side look, also carrying censer in his hand. The innermost place, the burial room, very small one this time, in it one of the best reliefs representing Osiris, the head judge in the afterlife. The time of the tomb, 1100 BC. It was robbed 400 AD during the Roman time. It was closed after that. Finally, it was discovered in 1902 by an Italian excavator. You will see beautiful colors inside, and of course you are not allowed to take pictures inside. And because it's a small tomb, it's one of the tombs, they don't allow us as guides to explain inside. That's why I did brief you here. So if you don't mind, leave your cameras here. I stay with them till you come back, and be sure they will not be for sale. But it was a very big mortuary temple of a pharaoh called Amilufis III, the builder of Luxor temple. Why we call them Memnon statues? But they're depicting a pharaoh. His time 1400 BC. It's a nice story. Between 27 BC and 199 AD, people listened into musical sound coming out of one of them. They thought that the son of Memnon came to mix with it at dawn to cry for his mother, the goddess of dawn, on passing in that area. Many visitors did, some of them Roman emperors. They left their graffiti on the pedestal of the statue. 199 AD Septimius Severus came because he didn't believe them. He asked how a statue could be singing. He crossed the river in the afternoon. They put for him a tent with the statue where he had overnight there. At dawn he did. After listening into that sound, he went around the statue to find something wrong. He discovered a crack. The crack due to the earthquake of 27 BC. Because when cold wind penetrating the crack, it called that musical sound. He restored it. It took one more day. Next day he didn't hear it. No more singing. Each one of the statues, 700 tons, 65 feet high. Behind them nothing, as I said. A few days ago they came to work to excavate. Look at these stones, the hall of columns. Next to the wall, look at a sphinx. Can you see it? They could clear it. Do you see it? Here, near the tree. Can you see this sphinx?
Yeah.
Another one, crocodile, the sphinx. It's next to the next tree. Here. Can you see this? A body of a crocodile. It should be a head of a man.
Well, we should explain here that what we are looking at, again, is the Colossi of Memnon. Now, actually, these two great big statues stood at the entrance of the temple of Amemnos III. And as he explained to us a little bit about, there was an earthquake that happened, and it destroyed part of this. And, of course, there was a sound that seemed to come through the statues. Actually, in a book that I have, it says that in the morning, due to the heating by the sun's rays and the humidity of the night, the statue actually emitted sounds, and it sounded sort of like, according to one Greek scholar, it resembled those of a zither. Now, the ancient Greeks looked for an explanation in the legendary story by Homer about Memnon, who was the son of Eros and Tilton, who was killed by Achilles and reappeared in Thebes as a statue, and every morning lamented at the sight of his mother rising in the skies. Well, this phenomenon, which acquired great fame in ancient times and attracted numerous visitors from every corner of the region, as confirmed by the Greeks and the Roman signatures that are on those are the inscriptions on the feet of these great big, and the pedestals of the colossi that we see here. Well, it ceased, the sound ceased after the restoration works that was ordered by the Emperor Septimius Severus at the end of the 2nd century A.D. And I should mention, too, that the stone, they were built out of quartzite, and that came from a quarry, Betty, that was way up near Cairo, which is, quite a distance from where we are in the ancient city, if we want to call that Thebes or Luxor, where we are right now.
The water, that they could use for transportation to load the bricks, no, bricks, what do you call them? Pieces of granite. And
pieces of quartzite.
Quartzite, okay.
And anyway, that we did mention about that earthquake, and that earthquake happened in the year 27 BC. So that these guys have been standing there a long time, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Earthquakes do tremendous damage all over the world. I remember in Greece going to where the Olympics were, and all of the columns and the statues were laying on the ground. They never did pick them up.
Well, maybe it was too big a job. Anyway, we have traveled now back, and of course, you saw a lot of greenery and a lot of crops that were growing there. And we're now on the Nile River, and of course, as you look across the river there, you're able to see part of the city of Luxor, and that is a grand old hotel right there that is absolutely beautiful. And I have to admit that when we first got there, I videotaped an awful lot of that, and would you believe we lost the tape? First time that ever happened. I certainly hope it's the last one. So we'll just have to go back and do it all over again. But here you can see that there are several of these cruising ships, plus the little feluccas. Now those are the little ships that have the great big long poles up there for the sails, and those have been used, I guess, for centuries, evidently, up and down this river. But we can see some of the modern day ships, and of course we're going to get on ours, which is nice and air conditioned, and we're going to go up the river. Boy, look at these. These are big, right, Betty?
Yeah, I used to argue with Marv all the time. He'd say up the river, and I said, "No, Marv, you don't go up a river. You go down a river." But I was wrong. As usual, he was right.
Well, this is one of the rivers that you do go up. You know, that area that we had left just a little while ago, that the area where we saw the Colossi of Memnon, that temple. Of course, there isn't anything that is left there. Nothing has been that we could see that was excavated from there. But that was just one of many, many temples. I didn't realize until actually after we got home, because you know when you're on the ground there, you can see just so much. But if you were to take a look at it by air, or what I did when I got home, I actually bought some books on the area where we were, and we can see from the artist impressions and also from aerial shots how absolutely huge these areas were and how many temples. Now, we didn't get to see them all, naturally. We just got to see a small part of them because we didn't have time, but we probably saw the major ones. But I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and I can see why people study this, the history of Egypt, and why they can spend, and as many people have, just spending a lifetime doing it.
Well, I had a phone call from an Egyptologist, Marv, that taught at San Francisco State, and he was watching our program, and I was really flattered that he would watch the program, and he said he thought it was very, very interesting. He did make a correction in something I said when I talked about the hieroglyphics, and on the phone, he told me that we don't call them hieroglyphics, although we have seen other notations in our books about hieroglyphics, but he called them medumeters, and that word means the divine word of God. Now, he was an Egyptologist looking into the religious aspect of things. So anyway, he was nice, and I take his correction, and I think some of the things we were looking at were hieroglyphics, and then the other things that we were looking at could have been medumeters.
Well, we looked at an awful lot, so
Yes, yes, and I don't
it might be difficult to
I
say.
don't know one from t'other, but he would know as a student and a teacher of Egyptology.
As we see here, there's along the river there is quite a bit of civilization here, and of course that's where the civilization continued, of course, for centuries and centuries. But they're building even more hotels here in Luxor, and it was quite a large area. I didn't realize that Luxor was as big as it is. But then you've got to go back again and I say, hey, wait a minute, Marv. Remember, they called this Thebes during the Greek and Roman times, and so it has been there for a long, long time, and I don't know why. Sometimes when you're just a tourist and you see some of these things. Speaking about that, it looks like from one of these hotels, it looks like they're going to make sort of a boat type thing there. I wonder if that's going to be a restaurant or something.
Probably they'll just. I was thinking when you're going on and on about how beautiful it is. It is, and our hotel was lovely, and you could almost say, because we were in Luxor, that our hotel was luxurious. Is that right?
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. You had mentioned something before, Betty, when we were mentioning the mortuary, and of course, so much of this of the areas that we saw had to deal with the funeral rites of ancestors, and of course, the kings and the queens and the nobles and the sons and the daughters of them as well. And it seems that sometimes that we think that maybe they were just absolutely just engrossed with this. I mean, and with the afterlife.
They concentrated, it looks to me like in our readings and stuff, that they did concentrate on death. And you know what was important for them, just like it was throughout the ages, salt. And salt was always very valuable. Look in the New Testament, or the Old Testament rather, how it was the way of preserving food, which was the only way they had. So what they did, they preserved their mummies with salt, and they would, first of all, they would take out the insides, and then preserve it with salt. And then they put fragrant ointments and stuff. They rubbed it in on their bodies, and then wrapped them up in bandages, like you've seen the mummies. I thought that was so interesting. And then what they would do, Marv, before the burial, they would open the mouth of the poor dead pharaoh, because that symbolically restored his ability to speak. How about that?
Well, okay, yeah. Well, I know that they did take the vital organs out, of course, and they were all stored in jars that were also buried along with them. But I didn't realize that they opened the pharaoh's mouth.
This part, of course, I use my mouth so much that I suppose that's what sort of rang a bell with me. Open up your mouth and let it go, huh?
Maybe. We are on our cruise ship now, and of course you can see here's another sister ship that's going right by us, and this waterway, of course, is used so much, and we did see a lot of tourism going, even though we weren't at the tourist season. But these ships are beautiful. I mean, look here, you're looking across there, and looks like all of those the cabins have great big windows there and stuff. And that was a nice thing on the ship. I mean, there was a little small swimming pool, and there were all sorts of lounges and areas, and the food I thought was excellent, wasn't it?
Marv, there are different ships that ply up and down the Nile, and some of them are ever so much more luxurious. Now, we were sort of in a middle of the spectrum, because you always kind of want to make your price of your trip to be amenable to as many people as possible. And in my looking back and in doing my research, I thought it was more than adequate. We were very, very comfortable in it. We didn't need to spend $1,000 more to be on one of the more luxurious ones.
Oh, I thought we were in luxury. Now I'm just learning that right now. I thought the ship we were on was wonderful. Everything was new. Everything was immaculately clean, and to me that was just great. Well, I'm glad we didn't spend any more money then.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. Our boat itself, boat ship, it was more than adequate, and it had all of the amenities that you would expect.
This little village that we're going through here was very interesting, because Betty, you gave me a book to read as we were going down or up the river. Oops, I almost made the mistake myself, right? And it had to do with the time just while they were going to build the Aswan Dam, and they moved the people from Nubia, which would have been in the southern part of Egypt and beyond, which is now the Sudan, I believe, moved them north. And a lot of the types of homes that the Nubian people lived in were sort of were built of sort of this mud or clay, I believe. And then on the inside of it, you can see that, of course, from the outside, but on the inside, the walls were decorated, and they were really very, very nice. That book was really interesting.
They were very comfortable because they were warm for them in the winter, and they were cool for them in the summer. And then to have an American woman, her husband was a professor at the university in Egypt, and they transported their family. In fact, she had a baby in one of these camps. And it was quite primitive and so different. And she writes so well about her experiences. I want to get that out again, and I learned a lot from that, and great admiration for these people that go over and put up with a lot of hardships. But
Her husband was her husband working on the Aswan Dam?
no. He was a professor, and he was in wanted to keep the records. He went down to make sure that everything was recorded, so that when the city was inundated, they would have perfect records. Well, I don't know what's perfect, but as best as possible records of the community, the way they lived, all of the things, the ceremonies, etc., that took place, and so that was recorded for history.
Well, that's true because after the dam was built, and then you had the lake, which is absolutely fabulous. So we're going to see that in one of our other shows, because we finally got down to Aswan, and then we took an airplane and we flew over a lot of Lake Nasser and to go to Abu Simbel to see some more of the wonderful things that are there, and that's what I wanted to really see. Anyway, I will save some of that for later. The point I wanted to make was that you're right, that because the life did change, because those villages were totally wiped out by the lake, and it's good. And I really enjoy that book. I want to thank you very much for letting me read that. And it's great to read it as you're relaxing and going on the Nile River, and here you're reading about the very area where you are. Anyway, as you say, it was a true story.
Sure it was. So anybody that's watching, if you're interested in what the book, it's an old book, because this took place so long ago. Give me a ring. I'll tell you how to get it out of the library.
You mean you don't have a copy sitting at your desk?
I'm afraid not. I had to take it back.
Oh, that's too bad.
Marv, it's interesting, excuse me for a minute, the contrast of what we're looking at now, almost jungle-like areas of it, and then where we came from. It's the contrast is so, I don't know, it's stimulating actually to see the differences that take place.
Well, I think this is one of the exciting things when you do take a cruise on the Nile, because you can look on one side of the river and you're going to see something like this, and then sometimes you look over on the other side and it's just as dry as can be. But this looks like it's a little village right here, and that they have a lot of date palms that are there, and so it does give you sort of a jungly look right there. But I also like to see what they have done here on the side of the river, because to stop the erosion, of course, and you can see that that's all blocked up, and we saw that just going on for miles and miles and miles. And then other areas, no, it wasn't like that at all. It would just be rough, and you could see that the water would take its toll. But in these particular areas where some of the villages were right along the Nile, that you could see. But it is beautiful. See, here it's just changed again.
I don't believe that they have the tremendous overflow of the river like they had. I think they've pretty well controlled it now.
That's true, because the dam was built. Well, that's about all the time that we have, but if you're interested in any of our trips, give Betty a call. Betty, your number is?
488-7443.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.